Hello all, and welcome back to the Jagged Podcast. I'm not entirely sure where I'm going with this wee step into YouTube with spoken word pieces, so your feedback would be amazing, really, it would. There are no comments on the videos, yuns, but you can reach me as usual on Twitter or on the Random Public Journal website or its Facebook page, details below. Thanks to the rise of European far-right movements and political parties, and especially after the Trump election, it has become something of a fad for mainstream politicians and their supporters to brand their opponents as populists. British nationalists, an awful shower to call anyone names, have consistently decried the SNP as a populist party at the helm of a populist independence movement, and this is what I'd like to address here. Is the Scottish National Party a populist political party? Well, what's populism for starters? That's a good question, but given that I want to keep these podcasts in the bite-size range, I can't really get into that here, but I promise I will return to it in another video. For the purposes of this video, however, I'm going to limit the definition to a party's relationship to the dominant political establishment. That's the political mainstream, or the status quo. Taking the status quo to be Westminster in the context of UK politics, Fraser Nelson, the editor of the right-wing Spectator magazine, framed the SNP way back at the end of 2014 after the independence referendum as the UKIP of Scotland, anti-Westminster and populist with regard to its obsession with borders and waving flags. Effie Deans, a unionist blogger, with blogger in flying quotation marks, reduces what she sees as the SNP's populist nature to it being a single issue party, which, as the party of government, it so obviously isn't, and because contradictorily, it is left and has destroyed the left at the same time. Go figure. But while it's in the business of mainstream politics and government in Holyrood, the SNP doesn't quite meet the definition these guys are trying to create. Just take Hartlib's academic definition in her paper, Here to Stay, Anti-Establishment Parties in Europe. Populists consider mainstream politics to be a redundant activity and argue that there is no distinction between the parties of the establishment. They use populist strategies to advocate the idea of the people against the politicians. Well, this definition, as a working strategy, really wouldn't work that well for the SNP. It's a party of politicians in the game of establishment politics. Just ask the chief of the Better Together campaign and Professor Greenink. McDougall is adamant the SNP is an establishment party, albeit a Scottish establishment party, a point emphasised in bold caps by Jill Stevenson. The SNP is the establishment in Scotland, she says. Nothing radical, or dare we say populist, about that. Well, we can't get into a more comprehensive definition of populism here. All the political science and sociology literature agrees that for a party to be populist, it must at least be anti-establishment. This is exactly how Muller introduces populism in his 2016 book on the subject, What is Populism? It is a necessary but not sufficient condition to be critical of elites in order to count as a populist. The SNP can't be both populist and the establishment. The Unionists can't have it both ways. It doesn't work like that. So what is the SNP? Well, this is another subject we can't get into here, but we can posit the idea that it is both establishment and anti-establishment in one certain regard. That it is the establishment of a nation in competition with the establishment of another nation by which it is dominated. And such things do exist. Thanks for listening. The idea here is to start reaching people beyond the written word with videos and podcasts. I want to keep them interesting, informative and on topic. But this costs time and money. Your support, if you can afford to give it, would be greatly welcome. Have a look at my Patreon account in the link below. Just $1 a month will go a long way to keeping this project going. So thanks again, and I'll see you in the next video. Chiri maha.